Book 5 of the Nicomachean Ethics deals with justice, with dikaiosune. I mention the Greek word because I think it's sometimes helpful for us to refrain from jumping directly to the assumption that we understand something. In this case, the word justice has great popularity in our age. Since it's popular, we must understand what it means, right? Maybe, maybe not. As we work our way through Book 5, we'll consider some ways of understanding it that might not match up exactly with our inclinations and our experience. In my day job, I encounter the word dikaiosune and its cognates all the time. There, it's more commonly translated as righteousness, or in its adjectival form as righteous, or when a verb as justify. Plato's Republic is a long exploration of dikaiosune. Many translations of the Republic use that word justice to translate it. Not all do, however. Some use the word morality. We might say that these words, justice, righteousness, and morality, are all in the same semantic ballpark, but they certainly don't seem to be strict synonyms. They often aren't even used in the same contexts. At 1129a, line 7, Aristotle says, "We see that all people mean by justice that kind of state of character which makes people disposed to do what is just and makes them act justly and wish for what is just. And similarly, by injustice, that state which makes them act unjustly and wish for what is unjust." Maybe this helps, maybe it doesn't. Let me highlight the Greek for you. The character quality of dikaiosune makes people disposed to do what is dikaios and wish for what is dikaios. So far, all we're getting through the repeated use of variants of this one word is the depth and breadth of the virtue. If I have the character quality of justice, of dikaiosune, that means I will do certain things, do those certain things in a certain manner, and will want what tends in that same direction. Put this way, the virtue sounds all pervading. When you look at the people around you who seem to you to embody this virtue, assuming at least some do you see this breadth in their expression of it? At 1129b, line 4, he says, "Now people pray for and pursue these things, but they should not, but should pray that the things that are good absolutely may also be good for them, and should choose the things that are good for them." The just person is seeking not just what seems good, but what is good. The just person goes even further, seeking to desire that which she takes to be good is actually good for her, and that what is actually good for her would be desired and sought by her. Finally, at 1130a, line 8, Aristotle notes how important this virtue is. Justice, in this sense, then, is not part of virtue, but the whole of virtue. Nor is the contrary, injustice, part of vice, but the whole of vice. Aristotle starts this chapter, chapter 3, by giving examples of some wrong behaviors and discussing possible motivations for them. At 1130a, line 28, he says, "All other unjust acts are ascribed invariably to some particular kind of wickedness. For example, adultery to self-indulgence, the desertion of a comrade in battle to cowardice, physical violence to anger. But if a person makes gain, his action is ascribed to no form of wickedness, but injustice." I see a few things here. First, the forms of wickedness he mentions are not themselves directly equated with injustice. Committing adultery, deserting a comrade in battle, and physical violence, all these are wrong in his view. Are any of these actions viewed as wrong in our culture? What cultural convictions are likely to cause a person to see these actions as wrong? On the other hand, which cultural convictions are more likely to cause a person to excuse these actions? The second thing I notice is that it is the motivation that makes the difference. If the motivation for adultery is self-indulgence, what our culture might put as, if it feels good, do it, then that is an act of wickedness, a wrong action. But its fault lies in its being an act of self-indulgence, not its being an injustice. Likewise, an act of desertion as an expression of cowardice is blameworthy for being an act of cowardice, but is for that reason not blameworthy for being an injustice. A third thing I noticed is what would make each of these three acts an injustice is doing them for gain. Suppose I am doing any of these things, committing adultery, deserting a comrade, committing physical violence toward others. My actions are examples in instances of injustice to the extent that I do them for the gain I can get from them. Presumably, this gain is not merely monetary, but is brought about by our being driven by the question, what's in it for me? Why do you think gain is such a problem for Aristotle? If someone in our social setting were to say something like this, what possible reasons would she give for seeing the quest for gain as an instance of injustice